Okay, so I want to start this deep dive with a bet.
I bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say I put a silver spoon on a table right in front of Professor Charles Xavier.
The most powerful mutant mind on Earth.
Exactly. Can he pick it up using only his brain?
No, he absolutely cannot.
Come on. I mean, he moves things with his mind. That's the whole gimmick, right?
It's the gimmick of the franchise for sure, but it actually isn't his power at all. If you put money on Xavier lifting that spoon, you are going to lose your money.
Seriously.
But
Because I feel like I've seen him do it in like a dozen movies.
you've seen Jean Grey do it, you've seen Magneto do it with metal, but Charles Xavier, never. It is probably the single biggest misconception in comic book history.
Wow, okay.
Xavier is a telepath. He's not a telekinetic. He cannot lift a teaspoon. He cannot open a door. He cannot even tie his own shoes with his mind.
So
He can only manipulate the person holding the spoon to do it for him.
Which, okay, that is infinitely more terrifying, honestly. I'd rather you just throw the spoon at me than hijack my arm to do it yourself.
Right? And that is the horror right at the center of this character. Today we are doing a really deep dive into the mind of Professor X.
And we aren't just reading his Wikipedia page here.
Definitely not.
We are looking at the actual mechanics of his powers and the genuinely disturbing ethics of how he uses them.
Yes.
Plus, the real-world neuroscience that, and I'm really not exaggerating here, is getting uncomfortably close to making the stuff real.
It is. We've got a massive stack of sources today for you. Everything from the original 1963 comic runs to character analyses from the Marvel databases.
And a really dense but fascinating scientific paper from the University of Washington.
About brain-to-brain interfaces, yeah. So our mission today is to completely dismantle the sort of St. Charles image.
Because everyone knows the Patrick Stewart version, right? The kindly, bald grandfather figure who just wants peace.
Exactly. But the source material paints a completely different picture of a man who is incredibly controlling, manipulative, and scientifically fascinating.
So let's go back to that distinction you made right at the start. Telepathy versus telekinesis.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like the general public just uses those terms interchangeably.
They do. But in the Marvel universe, the distinction is rigid. Think of it this way. Telekinesis is hardware.
Moving physical matter.
Right. Telepathy, on the other hand, is software. Xavier is essentially a hacker.
A biological hacker.
Exactly. His power set is strictly about data. Reading minds, projecting thoughts, shutting down motor functions, and casting illusions.
So he can't actually throw a giant rock at you, but he can make your brain entirely believe a rock is crushing you.
Yes, and he can make you feel the physical pain of that impact, too.
That is wild.
And the range is staggering. The sources say his base projection radius without any tech is about 250 miles.
That covers what? Like most of the Northeast Corridor if he's in New York?
Roughly, yeah, about 400 kilometers. But the range isn't even the scary part. It's the processing power.
Right, because he isn't just a passive radio receiver listening to static.
No, he has an eidetic memory.
Mm-hmm.
And he can learn foreign languages instantly just by accessing the language centers of a native speaker's brain.
See, that is the ultimate cheat code for travel. Just download French from the guy next to you.
It's the ultimate cheat code for information, period. He is essentially a living, supercomputer processing human thought. And this perfectly fits his background because even before the powers manifest, the guy is already a documented genius.
Oh, yeah. He has PhDs in genetics, biophysics, and psychology, like he went to Oxford and Columbia.
He is an academic first and foremost.
An academic who happens to be a mutant, and a wealthy one.
Very wealthy. His father, Dr. Brian Xavier, was a nuclear scientist with serious old money.
But, and this is the key to his psychology that we found in the character profiles, Charles comes from a home completely filled with trauma.
Right. His father dies, and his mother remarries a man named Kurt Marco.
Who is highly abusive.
Yes. And that marriage brings in a stepbrother.
The famous stepbrother.
Cain Marco.
Who grows up to become the Juggernaut.
Yes.
I always forget they're actually related. It almost seems too on the nose for a comic book.
It is, but it's literally perfect if you think about it. Look at Cain Marco. He is the Juggernaut. An unstoppably physical force. Absolutely nothing can halt his physical momentum. He is all body.
Oh, wow.
And then you have Charles, who ends up in a wheelchair, physically limited, but with a mind that is completely immovable.
The unstoppable object versus the immovable mind. I love that.
It creates this intense dynamic where Charles learns from a very young age that the physical world is inherently dangerous. It's abusive.
So his only refuge and his only weapon really is the mind.
Exactly.
But That's where things get murky for me when reading through these sources.
What do you mean?
Well, you'd think a guy who grew up with an abusive stepdad would be hypersensitive to the idea of violating someone else's autonomy.
You would think so.
But looking at these comic histories, Xavier seems to have absolutely no problem messing with people's heads when it suits his agenda.
Messing with is putting it very lightly. The central moral tension of the character is that he desperately wants to be a teacher, but his powers essentially make him a god.
And he doesn't always resist the temptation to play God.
Rarely, actually.
Let's talk about the Vanisher incident.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was reading the summary of X-Men issue number 2 from 1963, and my jaw literally hit the floor. He basically lobotomizes a guy.
He essentially deletes a core file in the man's brain.
Just uninstalls it.
Pretty much. Yeah. The X-Men are fighting this villain, the Vanisher, who can teleport. And Xavier just decides he's done with the fight. So he reaches into the Vanisher's mind and gives him highly specific amnesia.
He makes him forget that he has powers.
Right.
Okay, but is that just forgetting? Like forgetting where I put my car keys?
No, the psychological analysis in our source material makes a really dark distinction here. It argues that Xavier wiped the autobiographical memory.
The story the Vanisher tells himself about who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he didn't wipe the procedural memory.
Wait, so the body still knows how to teleport?
Yes. Think about it like wiping a computer's hard drive, but leaving the operating system running in the background.
Oh, man.
The computer is on, the fans are spinning,
Yeah.
the circuits are ready to compute, but it has absolutely no idea what programs to run.
That is deeply horrifying. You'd feel the physical impulse to teleport your nerves would literally be firing to do it, but your conscious mind would just be hitting a 404 error.
It's a phantom limb scenario, but for your entire identity. And Xavier does this casually.
Just to teach a lesson.
Right. It sets a massive precedent early on that he believes he's the judge, jury, and executioner of your very thoughts.
And that arrogance absolutely backfires on him eventually. We have to talk about the Onslaught entity.
The physical manifestation of his repressed dark side.
I remember the 90s comics for this. Big red armor, very pointy aesthetic.
It was the 90s, so everyone was pointy.
Yeah.
But the actual origin of Onslaught is pure psychological horror.
Walk us through it.
Xavier finally snaps and uses his power to wipe Magneto's mind completely.
Leaving him in a vegetative state.
Yes.
Again with the mind wiping.
It is his go-to move. But this time there's backlash. Magneto's darkness floods back into Xavier's mind during the psychic connection.
And it merges with Xavier's own repressed anger.
Exactly. It creates a sentient psychic entity that eventually physically separates from him.
So Onslaught isn't just some different guy from space. It's literally Xavier's dark side walking around.
It is the manifestation of every single time Xavier wanted to use his powers for pure selfishness and suppressed it. It proves that the friendly teacher persona is really just a dam holding back a massive reservoir of rage and control.
Which honestly explains the Xavier protocols perfectly.
It really does.
Because when I first read about the protocols in the source material, I thought, okay, this is just smart tactical planning.
Sure.
But the more I thought about it, the more messed up it got.
That's incredibly dark.
He has a highly detailed file on exactly how to kill every single one of his own students.
And himself. Very detailed. How to neutralize Wolverine, the specific weaknesses of Storm, how to permanently shut down Cyclops.
And imagine you're a student at this school. You look up to this guy. He's your father figure. And then you find out he's written a thesis on exactly how to murder you if you ever step out of line.
It really shifts the perspective.
That's not a teacher, that's a warden.
What it highlights that deep down, Xavier is a pragmatist. He runs a paramilitary organization, not a boarding school.
Right.
He knows that his students are weapons of mass destruction, and he refuses to let those weapons be used against him or his goals.
It's intense paranoia disguised as strategy.
Or perhaps it's just the heavy burden of his intelligence. He knows exactly what they're capable of because he's been inside their heads.
Speaking of capability, let's pivot to the real world. Because we can debate comic book ethics all day, but the absolute scariest part of this deep dive was the University of Washington study.
The BrainNet paper.
Yes. You mentioned BrainNet earlier, and this is where the fiction totally dissolves into reality.
This is a peer-reviewed study published back in 2018.
Please tell me they didn't actually build a human hive mind.
They built a primitive one.
Oh, great.
They successfully connected 3 human beings via brain-computer interfaces. They put them in 3 separate rooms. 2 of the subjects were senders, and 1 was a receiver.
And they played Tetris. That was the experiment.
They played a collaborative telepathic version of Tetris. The senders could see the screen. They could see if the falling block needed to be rotated to fit the gap.
But the receiver couldn't.
Right. The receiver was staring at a blank screen, but they were the only one with their hand on the control to actually rotate the block.
So the receiver is flying completely blind, relying entirely on the thoughts of the other two.
Completely blind. So if the block needed to rotate, the senders would look at specific flashing LED lights to generate a specific brain signal.
An EEG pattern.
Exactly. That signal was recorded over the EEG sent over the internet and then converted into a magnetic pulse via a TMS machine on the receiver's head.
Transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yes.
And what did that actually feel like for the receiver? Did they just hear a voice in their head saying, rotate the block?
No, and that's the most fascinating part. It entirely bypassed language.
Really?
The magnetic pulse stimulated the visual cortex, directly causing what are called phosphenes.
Flashes of light.
Yes. If the receiver saw a flash of light in their vision, they knew to turn the block. If they saw nothing, they left it alone.
So they are literally beaming information directly into someone's eyes without them seeing it with their physical retinas.
Direct brain-to-brain communication.
Mm-hmm.
And they achieved an 81.25% accuracy rate.
That is just wild. I mean, it's clunky, sure, but functionally it's telepathy.
The researchers themselves explicitly compared it to a primitive version of Cerebro. They know exactly what they are building.
And it's not just Tetris either. The sources mentioned other BCIs, or brain-computer interfaces, like that study in Berlin involving the car drivers.
Right, the braking experiment.
They hooked a driver up to an EEG, right? And the car was programmed to brake when it detected the sheer intention to brake in the brain.
Rather than waiting for the foot to physically hit the pedal.
Because the electrical signal in the brain travels so much faster than the muscle movement.
Much faster. In the experiment, the car stopped a full car length sooner than with physical braking.
Which is the difference between a near miss and a fatal accident.
Exactly. And there's more. We have prosthetics now where people control robotic arms or wheelchairs purely with their thoughts.
Even entertainment stuff like those Nekomimi cat ears that move based on the wearer's emotional state or concentration.
It's all the same underlying technology.
Okay, so that's the upside. Safer cars, better prosthetics. But you combine that with the BrainNet Tetris thing, and we are talking about a very near future where privacy is just obsolete.
We are definitely moving toward a world where the interface between mind and machine, and eventually mind and mind, is seamless.
Which brings us right back to Charles Xavier. Because if we are going to have this kind of technology, we really need to understand the philosophy of the person holding the keys.
We do. And the sources point out that Xavier's whole vibe, the shark suit, the intense stare, the fingers pressed to the temple, it's very specific.
It's highly theatrical.
It is. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby originally modeled him visually on the actor Yul Brynner.
Oh, I can totally see that.
But his mannerisms borrow heavily from 19th century stage mentalists and spiritualists. He's deliberately performing authority.
But inside his head, it's not a performance at all. The comics talk a lot about the astral plane.
Dream country, as it's sometimes called.
Right.
In Marvel physics, telepathy isn't just invisible radio waves bouncing around. It literally takes place in a separate dimension.
The astral plane is where the soul or the astral self actually lives.
Yes.
Yep.
And Xavier fights literal battles there against entities like the Shawit King.
Which sounds completely exhausting.
It is exhausting. And this actually leads directly into the community theory that we found in the psychological analysis of the character.
Which asks the question, why does the most powerful mind on Earth constantly surround himself with teenagers in yellow spandex?
Right. Besides the fact that he needs someone to drive the Blackbird jet.
True.
The theory suggests it's an absolute existential necessity for him.
How?
Think about it. If you can hear every single thought on the planet, and you can casually rewrite reality and memories, how do you define where you end and someone else begins?
You wouldn't be able to. You'd just dissolve into the noise of 8 billion minds.
Exactly. The X-Men aren't just his soldiers or his students. They are his peer group.
They are a reality check.
They provide a strict psychological boundary that says, Charles, you stop here. We are real. You are real.
Without them, he risks becoming just a singular tyrannical consciousness.
He desperately needs them to remind him that he's human.
Which is exactly why the recent developments in the modern comics are so incredibly disturbing.
Because he seems to have completely stopped caring about being human.
We have to talk about Krakoa.
We do.
This is the modern evolution of the X-Men, and reading these recent arcs, it feels like a completely different genre of fiction.
It absolutely is. For 50 years, Xavier was essentially modeled on Martin Luther King Jr. preaching integration.
I have a dream that humans and mutants can live together.
Exactly. And
And now
now
he is a ruthless head of state.
he realized the dream was dead. He accepted that humans were never going to stop hating and hunting mutants. So he abandoned the pacifist schoolmaster routine and founded a sovereign mutant nation, Krakoa.
And he didn't do it by asking nicely. He did it with cold, hard pharmaceutical leverage.
He had his mutant scientists develop these miracle drugs, life-extending pills, antibiotics that cure literally anything, treatments for dementia.
And he took those to the human governments and basically said, you can have these, you can save your people.
But only if you officially recognize our absolute sovereignty as a nation.
If you won't love us, you will need us.
It is pure, ruthless geopolitics. It's hard power.
But the real game changer, the thing that definitively puts him in the God category, is the Resurrection Protocol.
Yes, the ultimate synthesis of his mutant power and his technology.
This is the sci-fi concept that completely blows my mind. Walk me through exactly how this works.
So Xavier uses Cerebro, which amplifies his range globally to constantly back up the mind and memories of every single mutant on Earth.
It's a literal cloud save for the human soul.
Exactly. If a mutant dies out in the field, a specialized group of mutants known as the Five goes to work. They can rapidly grow a fresh biological body in a husk or an egg.
Okay.
And then Xavier takes that latest backup from Cerebro and physically downloads the consciousness into the new body.
So death is just a temporary glitch.
Death is merely an inconvenience now. He has effectively conquered mortality for his entire species.
That shifts the power dynamic of the entire world completely. You can't threaten a nation that fundamentally doesn't stay dead.
But look at the profound ethical cost of it.
Right.
Xavier is no longer just a teacher or even a politician. He personally decides who comes back. He decides the order of the resurrection queue. He has literally become the ultimate arbiter of life and death.
That's the God complex fully realized.
It is, and it beautifully circles back to that very first question you asked about the spoon.
Yeah, he can't lift the spoon.
He cannot lift the physical spoon, but he can resurrect the dead. He can manipulate global markets with a thought. He can entirely wipe your identity from your own brain.
He has traded basic physical power for absolute existential power.
It's a terrifying trade-off. And that is the true core of the character when you strip away the superhero tropes. Professor X represents the absolute ultimate power of connection.
Because there is real beauty and empathy, right? In being able to understand someone else's pain perfectly.
Of course. But the inescapable flip side of that total connection is total violation.
The Vanisher incident. The global surveillance with Cerebro. The mental manipulation.
You cannot have one without the other. To truly definitively know someone is to fundamentally invade their privacy.
Precisely. And real-world technology like BrainNet strongly suggests we are barreling toward that exact reality.
Faster than we think.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question for you listening at home right now.
It does.
If that technology actually matures, if BrainNet evolves to allow full, complete thought transmission, no typing, no talking, just pure, unfiltered connection to another human mind,
Would you opt in?
it's the ultimate convenience, perfect communication.
But are you willing to let the entire world see the spoon on your table?
I think I'll keep my thoughts entirely to myself for now. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.